And where does that fit into the whole scheme of love and God's plan? Well, I don't know if I'll give you that answer, but I will, I pray, give you hope. But first, speaking about the book of Job. In the book of Job, Rick read that story about this fellow who was righteous and always faithful, no matter what happened, no matter what. And one day, God allowed Satan to come and place loathsome sores all over his body. And Job refused to stop being faithful to God. And that's where we're starting. And in part of that book, then there is a quote from Job that says, "What are human beings that you make so much of them, that you set your mind on them, O God? You visit them every morning, and you test them every moment. Will you not look away from me for a while? Let me alone until I swallow my spittle. If I sin, what do I do to you, you watcher of humanity? Why have you made me your target?" That sounds something a little bit like maybe what any one of us could say when trying times come upon us. Now, this text is from the book of Job, chapter 7. It's part of a very long discussion based on the wonders of humanity regarding why good and bad things happen, and the reaction of the man Job to being covered in these loathsome sores. It's meant to be God's proof to Satan that this man, Job, is faithful in any and every situation. So, God allows Job to suffer. And then in this book, the following 41 chapters are a discussion between Job and his friends about the trials of life and the possible reactions of any of us humans could have, including abandoning God and abandoning good civil behavior. So for 41 chapters, Job wavers and he complains, but he always returns to the root of his faith, which is his fidelity towards God, his loyalty, his understanding of humility, and the rightness of good intentions coupled with good actions and even better faith. Job is sticking with it no matter what. Now, in the end, even through all of his faithful protestations to his friends who are urging him to curse God, God still, even though Job hangs on and shows his faith, God still puts him in his place when he reminds him that even his good intent, even his actions, and even his faith do not begin to scratch the surface at the kind of commitment that God has for us, despite the appearance of great and unmentionable tragedies in our lives. It's a little frustrating to hear that, for sure, especially after Job has poured out his heart and accepted his fate. He still is put in his place. But once again, that is the reality that we are against as humans. Sometimes, no matter how much faith that we have, things that are ugly and disturbing are placed before us. Though our egos tell us that we are powerful, that we are wise, that we are smart, and as people of privilege like you and me, we live lives that are of relative ease and of security and of safety, there are still events of life which will bring us to tears. Tears of sorrow, tears of fear, tears of sadness, or tears of confusion. Like Job, we can plead that we have been good people, so why is it that this bad thing is happening to me? We ask the question, if there is a loving, all-powerful God, how could that God allow this to happen? The answer to such a thing is, really, what does our perception of love and power have to do with it all? If we were able to control, or if we were able to correct God, God would hardly be God, but just a friend maybe down the street. And then we have this other scripture from Mark, frightening to many a preacher, about marriage and divorce. It seems as if Jesus creates this new teaching about a woman being able to divorce her husband. Or maybe it's because we simply don't know the reality of an ancient Jewish woman being able to support herself if she would divorce her husband. Most women were given away in exchange for a dowry or a payment by the groom's family. To divorce a man would have been highly unusual, as she neither would be a person of power or means herself. And this payment would have been wasted on the part of the man's family, and they would have sought revenge. But in the same vein, the man divorcing a woman seemed to be something Jesus acknowledges as perfectly legal since Moses' time. Because, as he describes God intervention, allowing a divorce due to the man's hardness of heart. So we're stuck in a quandary here, because it seems as if the Bible is sanctioning divorce, and Jesus seems to normalize it, if not for his phrase, hardness of heart, and his ensuing return to the Genesis story, where it talks about a man leaving his father and mother, cleaving to them and going to his wife, and the two becoming one flesh. Jesus tries in that instance to bring his listeners back to the intent of God, that two people once joined should focus on fidelity, no matter what the circumstances. However, I think Jesus would agree, as I do also, that physical or emotional or spiritual abuse cannot be a reason to keep people together. It can't be something that suddenly we look at and say, oh no, you must stay in fidelity no matter what. I don't believe that, not so ever. But also, though, the issue is more so Jesus might be talking to us about our wandering hearts or our wandering eyes. So Jesus understands the hurts of separation and isolation that can occur when two people find themselves losing the fidelity in their relationship. And one slight from an individual to the other can set up a spiral of events leading further and further down a path of distrust and resentment. It's the way it often happens. Sometimes it's a meant slight, sometimes it's a perceived slight, sometimes it wasn't something at all. It was a fear, perhaps. And these things then go and they spiral. Now, the story of Job presents the human divine purpose of fidelity, while the Mark scripture sets up a human to human purpose of fidelity. Now, mind you, the strangeness of life and the coupling of two lives is difficult enough to keep people together for life. Let's face it. So often we come from different places and different understandings and different upbringings. And it's a strange thing, I have to say, that, and we're finding it out more and more. And maybe it's because things have gotten easier, we don't know, none of us really knows, as divorce has become more the norm than not, that people are able to stay together for a long time. It's difficult. But when we purposefully or mistakenly inject distrust into a relationship, the ability of either person to recover becomes a monumental task. It's just that plain and simple. Jesus was talking to each and every one of us. That is our responsibility to not do that. For Job, it was a battle with personal issues that tempted him to leave God. And the same goes with us. The real battle is we ourselves have personal battles, and those battles we fight, and they get in the way of being faithful and honest with God, and sometimes with those around us. Fidelity is that thing which tells us before the trouble starts, keep your vision, fly right, allow nothing to come between us and those we love. I don't suggest blind adherence to any relationship for anyone. That's simply cruel, unfeeling, insensitive, unreal. I don't suggest that at all. What we always need to be striving for is a living and breathing friendship in any relationship, one that will grow with respect with the needs of others. But then we find ourselves in positions where one of us has not done that. And there I think Jesus understands. I certainly do. I really do. Jesus was reminding us, though, of the original intent of a relationship of trust and love and fidelity and where it should be. They were trying to paint him into a corner. And he answered simply and honestly. But I know his ultimate goal was love, and it was always love. He had to answer some of these people who were harsh and they wanted just laws to exist. And we know that there are laws that have existed in years past, whether it be that maintained a man's power over a woman, especially, for any reason. And a man could be sexually violent. He could be domineering. He could keep someone from going anywhere. And there would be no way for a woman to leave that. Our friend, by the way, Jerry Wilson, he was a state senator in New York. He might be one of the very first people who made it possible for a woman to divorce in those situations, because in the state of New York, the only reason that divorce was possible for a woman was infidelity. And he fought the Catholic Church almost single-handedly and won. I don't think you might not know about that. And then the rest of the country followed. It allowed, though, for when things were wrong, things were seriously wrong, and others were being wronged and children were being hurt, that love needed to supersede this contract. So Jesus, I think, felt the same. He wanted love more than anything else. So my friends, I pray that you grow in respect in the needs of others who are around you. And I pray that your faith be strong and that your fidelity be well thought out and that your lives be lived with truth, with grace, but also with the purpose of caring for the self and caring for others. My friends, may the Lord be with you.